Hello, and welcome to Aura Crown Presents the Empowered Podcast. This is your host, Tracy Nova. And today we have a beloved sister of mine. Her name is Christal Sullivan, and she is an intuitive guide, songstress, and founder of the Goddess Gathering, where women come together to reclaim their sacred feminine, embody the wisdom of the seasons, and rise in radical self-acceptance. Welcome, Christal. So happy to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so honored and excited to be here. I've personally been enjoying your podcast, and I love to see what different energies you share, and I'm so stoked to be a part of that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'd love to, before we jump in, to just take a moment across time and space to sort of unite ourselves, our listeners, the energies within and without. So if you're able, you can close your eyes. If you listen to this podcast while you're cleaning or driving, just keep on with your task and let the feelings and the sounds just sort of wash over you. And no matter what you're doing, you can take a moment to just breathe in really deeply through the nose. And then exhale out through your mouth. So nice. Do it again. In through the nose. Sigh it out. You can stay with your breath in any sort of pattern that comes up. And I ask that we remember the sacredness of this journey. May the maiden awaken our curiosity and wonder. May the mother within allow for deep care and compassion. May the wild woman liberate our truths, and the crone within us grace us with wisdom. May the work we do here ripple out through the cosmos, bringing happiness and freedom to all beings everywhere. And let's share one more breath together in through the nose and release it through the mouth. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and guiding us through it. I almost cried.
Oh, that's a good sign.
Yeah, when you're going through the archetypes, I felt tingles all around my head and going the back of, like down my spine. And I just felt the presence of all those archetypes, but then also like, my maternal lineages, 7 generations back and even forward too. Like I felt all of them. But then it also felt like they were me. Like I was them back then, and then I'm gonna be them in the future too. So it was like it was like a very internal, but then also external, like within and without experience at once.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. That was awesome.
I love that. That aligns so perfectly with like that whole model of those 4, because not all, goddess or feminine archetype approaches view like a 4 sacred that align with the seasons. There's so many different sort of goddess approaches, and one of the most popular is a 3 goddess, the mother, maiden, crone, and there's not so much of a mention of the dark goddess, the wild woman. But to me, there's the law of correspondence, right? So as above, so below, as within, so without, as you just experienced that, like it's both at the same time. It's inside of you and all around you. And so the earth, the great mother, right? She goes through 4 seasons, and so do we. So that's beautiful.
Yes. And that's what I love about attending your goddess gatherings, is because, we always hear about the maiden, mother, and crone, But when you brought the wild woman, I was like, wait, what? I was like, yes. And it matches so perfectly with, our Mother Earth and the cycles that she goes through. And to cast away the wild woman is like casting away the season of autumn. And that is necessary. Like we
Yeah.
need that.
It's my
Just like we
favorite
need a wild
season.
woman. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
So let's, since we're on this topic, let's go ahead and dive in on your journey of sisterhood, like just blooming and blossoming up this vision of the goddess gathering. Like, what was your journey through all of that?
Yeah, I will love to share it and be succinct because I sometimes will ramble and go on a tangent. So I will do my best to stay on task. Um, but
It's okay. We
that,
can flow. We can flow.
yeah, it's natural, right? But
Yeah.
so there's so many layers to how Goddess Gathering came about. I would say a foundation, like you asked about sisterhood, and it was sisterhood for me was always this kind of like back and forth. My mother she's amazing, and she had a really great attitude about supporting other women. She was not like very prone to jealousy, and even like her best friend that she's had since she was in her 20s recently reached out to me and was just like, I love that you're doing this. And your mom was the first woman I had ever met. And also for backstory, this friend of my mom's beautiful. And this friend of my mom, absolutely stunning. And she's like, your mom was the first person who treated me so kindly and like didn't make me feel less than. And I knew she didn't have to say it, but it was just so clear in her tone and the way it was expressed that she had experienced so much of that, like that sisterhood wound of people maybe being jealous or judging her, assuming things about her based on her looks. And she had received a gift in my mom of that didn't exist there. And she got to experience sisterhood through her. So I'm so grateful that my mom gave me some of that through her example. But I struggled to like really have a community around me. I always had friends, but I wanted like something bigger and I wanted it to be like deeper. And of course I would go there with my friends and I love my friends so much, but there was something missing. And I think it was that like that expansion of different people from different places, different ages, different backgrounds that's not always as easy to attain in a friendship group unless you really branch out. And so this has allowed my friendship group to totally change and expand because it's drawn in so many different women of so many different flavors and kinds and varieties. And then so actually birthing it was kind of so for me, how inspiration will show up and I will sort of receive guidance. I will not be able to sleep, and in the night I will write. Just will come out of me something. And so it kept coming out for nights and nights in a row of like these ideas, and it felt like an epiphany of like, what, there's 4 of these archetypes. There's 4 seasons. There's 4 phases of our menstrual cycle. There's 4 sacred feminine archetypes. And I need to talk about this, and I got to do something about it. And then I'm like, well, how do I even share this kind of information? And I, at the time, was teaching yoga at this beautiful studio, and the studio manager had been very supportive. And she, I think, in her intuition, knew like I was birthing something. And she's like, well, so if you have anything else you want to share, just let me know. And so I reached out, and I was like, I have to do women's circles now. And she's like, great, what are they? And I'm like, I'm not sure yet. So it just was one of those where I really jumped in with a lot of faith and let it blossom. And it's been so fun.
I love it. um, yeah. So So was there anything, did you have any hints or anything that happened before all of these downloads started coming through you during these nights?
Yeah, of course. So this, of course, comes after, it's been a little over a year. The Goddess Gathering celebrated their 1 year anniversary in June. So um, a year ago, I was about a decade into my yoga and meditation practice. So I had been slowly evolving what yoga and meditation meant to me over many years, from this very beginner phase where it was athletic and image driven, to eventually being something that was very inward and very deep and very sacred. And also within that span of a decade, I had so many life experiences that really like polished me. I was a very rough gem when I entered that journey, and was getting polished and polished and polished, and through, decisions that I made that made me face hardships and challenges, through a divorce, through finding the love of my life and new partnership, through becoming a mother. And the becoming of the mother is the one that really, really was the most profound, and saw the most fruit. It bore the most fruit, which is so appropriate, right? That the mother would be very abundant with actual, more tangible results, in that it was a total transformation of everything about me. And in that, I had to figure out what was next. And so I think these things started coming through more frequently, more clearly, because it was so needed. I thought I knew who I was, and then everything was different. And does that kind of give an idea? I'm not sure if I answered the question.
I'm pretty sure all the mothers out there can relate in some
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trial by fire for sure. But definitely then we can become the phoenix. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The whole pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum, motherhood is it's like a death, transformation, rebirth
Oh, yeah.
100 times over and over again.
It is. It so is. And I mean, and you've got a beautiful family, and you're growing new life inside of you now. And your mother archetype is really powerful and strong. But what I really love about you, if I can expand on that,
Yeah.
is I've noticed right away when I met you, you have this like ageless quality, and a lot of like spark that's very maiden energy, very youthful and excited. But it's really tempered with, it's not like frivolous excitement. It's very focused. And I think that's like your crone energy, which you also carry so strongly. I mean, you share so much wisdom on this podcast. You have really deeply ingrained and refined gifts that I know you share as well. And that's that deep wisdom that you carry. And then when I first met you, it was at a gathering, and I got to see you dance. And I was like, this wild woman. It was so beautiful and really wild and really free and very sensual and so inspiring. Like I became aware of you, and it like pulled it out of me and lit me up more. And then you spoke and you started talking about the kind of mother you were, and it just blew my mind to see how I feel like you'd give a really good example of embodying all of them at once in turn, no matter what sort of age or stage of your life you're in. And I love that. I really admire that in you.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ah! Thank you for acknowledging that and
Of course.
putting it into words. It's so funny because I've never really realized that about me. Because whenever I would attend your goddess gatherings, I'm like, what archetype am I? Like, I don't know. But when you explain all that, I was like, wait, yeah, it makes sense. I choose it. It's like maybe like a shaman way, I choose which one I want to be and embody that.
Yeah, and to me that's the point because like yes, we'll go through like literal physical seasons. There's a certain chronological progression of, your youth is a maiden, then you become a mother as you start to age, the wild woman, and in your elder years the crone. And that's true in a way, but someone can be any age and be very immature and not embody a crone energy, and vice versa. Somebody can be very young and have a lot of wisdom, even though they are very youthful.
Right.
So, so that it's like they're energetic signatures and they're archetypes, and in our minds, we're these sort of dualistic creatures where we are, spirit housed in a physical casing. So, we're the energy and the tangible at the same time. And so we can not just have to be that tangible material archetype. We can tap into the energy anytime because we are energy. And to be able to use them when we need them, and the way our brains sort of use symbolism and archetypes, it's like a shortcut, like a hack for our brain to try and think like, okay, I want to be like really free and tell the truth and just be wild. And it's like, okay, these abstract ideas mean something, but how do you embody that? And it's a lot more of like a mental process to unwrap that versus imagining a wild woman, like a beautiful seductress witch in the forest dancing and casting her spells on you. And, you see that in your mind's eye, and that embodiment is so much easier and quicker. So that's why I love the archetypes, because whatever that energy that we need, when you envision that archetype, when you see those symbols, it's so much easier to embody.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And let's go ahead and dive into these archetypes.
Sure.
For anyone who are like, what?
Totally.
What is this? Can you explain what each archetype is, their symbolism, how they match with the seasons of Mother Earth and so forth?
I would love to. So we could start with the spring, the maiden, right? So a maiden is typically in your mind's eye, you would see a young, maybe even very, very young woman on the edge of childhood, right? So very innocent, very youthful, full of potential and enthusiasm, and that sort of beginner's mind where anything's possible and they're willing to try new things and learn and fail because it's okay, because they have time to learn it. And of course, a shadow side to that might be that they're a little naive or they're easily influenced or manipulated because they haven't been quite so seasoned yet in the ways of the world. And that is mirrored in the spring. So on the season of spring, everything's sort of being reborn. It's all very new, and we have these buds and these little sprouts, and we know they're full of potential. This sprout could turn into a huge tree and bear so much fruit, but right now it's this little sprout. And we see the potential, and it's beautiful, and we're excited about it. And in theory, it needs a little bit of maybe protection, just like that maiden does. It's good for, someone to be able to teach us and guide us in a very healthy, respectful way because it's our journey, but to have those good influences for a maiden. But if you're not a maiden, you could call on that energy when you need, you're facing a fresh start, or you need to learn something new, or you're feeling a little lackluster, not feeling very enthusiastic about life. You could call on the maiden. And very playful. You can just picture spring flowers and a little girl running, skipping through the meadow, making the flower crown, and just singing for fun and dancing to the music in her head, right? That's kind of that archetypal image. And it's also correlated to the follicular phase of our menstrual cycle. So that right after we have our periods, so that very first part of our cycle where we're, like there's all those memes that go through the internet where you're just like, I feel great, I got energy, everything's new. So that would be maiden. And then the next season, of course, being summer, next archetype would be mother. So in the summer, that little sprout, those little buds, now they've bore fruit, they've blossomed, they've opened, and they're ripe. So some of that potential is being realized. And there's also this very potent creative life force within the mother. She bears the next generation. She creates life. And it doesn't have to always be like a literal baby. It can be anything that we create that has our life force energy. That is, like your business could be your baby, whatever it is. That's that energy. So it's a sort of a dual one in the sense that it's ripe and abundant and very, it's so generous, it's overflowing. There's so much to offer. So there's like a nurturing and a sort of offering that happens naturally in the mother. And there's so much compassion and care. And a shadow to that might be like giving a little too much. Perhaps losing sight of our own needs and being so nurturing and caring for other things, whether it's that business or whether it's children or a partner or whatever. So that is correlating to the ovulation phase. So that phase where we're like, I'm ready to create, we're ovulating, our bodies are ready to birth something, or our minds or our spirits, they're all just different manifestations of the same energy. So you might imagine that archetypal image of a mother being very lush, very full, very rounded, very common to see like large full breasts, maybe a very big pregnant belly, or if not a pregnant belly, very full hips, very like dripping in food and gold and deliciousness. Honey, yeah. So these sort of like nurturing, abundant sensations and that are being shared very willingly because there's just so much to give. And then we move through to autumn. And that is the season where there's still lots of abundance. It's the second harvest. Traditionally, we live in such a different world now to where like, what does second harvest even mean? But, I go to the grocery store anytime. But, that's new. So for a long time, this was the sort of last hurrah of you have everything that you need. And you can enjoy a lot of it now, and you can actually store some of it to get you through the next later parts. And you notice that even though there's a lot of this abundance, things are actually starting to change and slowly die off or go into hibernation. So that sort of energy of, yes, there's still a lot to share, but I have this deeper awareness and this instinctual knowing of what's coming for me and what's true for me. And there's a freedom of discerning how much of this is just for me and how much of this is to share. And it's this very sort of wild sensuality that comes with that power. And you might picture, and this is the luteal phase, which is when maybe we're accused of PMS and having these symptoms and these attitudes. And I think that there's a truth to that because that discernment comes on really strong and that power comes on really strong, but it's a little bit more harsh maybe than it would have been in the past because there's this sort of deeper knowing of like, that's not working. I don't even have time for that. So it's really a delicate dance to get that sort of power and that sort of liberation and wildness and still hold a softness and a consideration. You might picture a wild woman, sort of as I mentioned before, surrounded in the autumn woods, these sort of rich vibrant colors that are fading into darkness, and a beautiful enchantress is what I always picture, you know, wild hair and maybe dirt under her fingernails, but she's still so alluring and so luscious, much like the mother, but there's something a little bit otherworldly about her, and she's drawing you towards that thinning veil, letting you know, hey, I know there's something behind this veil. Come follow me. That's how I kind of experienced that wild woman. Let's go take a peek behind the veil. And then we come to the crone. And a crone is correlating with winter, so things are perceived as dead. But usually, you know, so many plants are actually just in a state of, what's the word? Sort of like a hibernation. They're just waiting for their next cycle of rebirth. They rebirth in the spring, they're going to come back. But there's this perception of an ending or of a death. And you see it all around. Things start to get cold and slow. And there's a little bit less of that abundance. And it's definitely a more like a inward turning. And the crone definitely carries that in the sense of there's a certain awareness every time you see the image of a crone and you visualize or witness an older person with their graying hair and their more frail body and their weathered hands and the sort of weight of knowledge and experience that they carry on their shoulders after all this time walking the earth, that it reminds us of our mortality. And so sometimes the crone is sort of made to be a villain, because to be reminded that we are mortal and that we're going to die no matter what. This life will come to an end, and whatever you believe the next steps are, there's no denying that this shell is going to end. And so it's a very stark sort of medicine to carry as a crone. And it can be so beautiful and honored. And I think maybe more in the past, perhaps it was so, in the sense of, you know, every gray hair is a lesson learned or a hardship survived. Every wrinkle is an expression and an emotion felt in the body. Every, you know, next generation that you've shared wisdom with and passed on your knowledge to is sowing a seed of the future. And that this weary shell eventually is ready to be released because our souls are ready for that next step. And the crone carries this wisdom that she is eternal and that is beautiful, and she's ready for that next journey. And so even though she offers us wisdom and shares these things with the next generations, she doesn't try to control them or influence them, in the sense that she knows it's their journey and their path. And there's an acceptance there. And there's a lot of community and support in that. And a shadow side would be, of course, like crone clinging to life and not accepting that next phase, or being afraid of death, basically, to an extreme degree, and being maybe isolated or very controlling. And I think I forgot to mention for the wild woman, the shadow sides would be sort of oh no, I did, being harsh and being like a rebel without a cause, just, you know, being wild for the sake of being wild.
Right.
And so that sort of brings us back. And then after the crone, it just starts all over again. So this is a never-ending cycle.
And what menstrual phase is the crone? Did you mention that?
So crone would be menstruation and menopause. So the absence of a menstrual cycle, or the bleeding.
Okay.
And that's, you know, there's a lot of traditions that hold there's a lot of power and a lot of mystery and a lot of wisdom that comes through when women of any age, when we're on our period, when we're actually in that act of shedding and releasing that menstrual blood it's very powerful. And that's that crone energy.
Yes. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all
Yeah,
of
you're
that.
welcome.
For some
I
reason.
love talking about it.
No, I love how you put everything together, and that you included the wild woman and the menstrual cycles, and even included menopause. Whew, I don't know. Like right now, I'm feeling like I just need to take a pause, like to integrate all of that in. Uh, yeah. Thank you. and and I think why I'm feeling this way is because, growing up, and I'm sure a lot of women feel this way too, or had these type of experiences. But growing up, when I was 11 years old and I started getting my cycle, I was like, what is this? And my mother did not tell me what was happening. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're bleeding. Hey, she's bleeding. She's like yelling at my father. I'm just like, like what? And then like the father is like awkward. It's like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, okay, now this is making me feel even more awkward. Like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And there's none of that sacred,
Like a rite of passage.
yeah, there was none of that. And it's like, okay, here's a pad. Don't have sex. you know? And that was it. And I'm like, okay. And then I just felt ashamed and embarrassed about
Yeah.
all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then now that I am getting older, I have a lot of older clients when I
Mm-hmm.
do my healing work, and a lot of them are going through menopause, and I'm like, wait, and I had to stop myself. I'm like, what is menopause? Like, I mean, I know what it is, but
Mm-hmm.
but like, at least for me, I was never taught these cycles.
Yeah.
And even my mother, she already went through menopause, but she didn't teach me anything. Like, it's like very like, no, we don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about
Yeah.
it. So yeah.
And as you said at the beginning of this share, like that's so prevalent in our society. And there's a lot of diving we could do on that topic of maybe why women's journey, women's health, women's cycles, women's power, women's, right to age and change is all very either hush hush or controlled or tried to be denied in our culture. And there's a lot of, just an unhealthy balance in trying to deny and control these things that aren't meant to be denied or controlled. They are just the absolute facts of life. And
Mhm.
so in that, we're left with powerful, life-changing events and these opportunities for a rite of passage or for deep connection or for greater expansion and understanding that are just being either ignored or made us to feel embarrassed of or ashamed of. So it's super common. I think my parents split up when I was little and I started my period at his house and I was mortified and I didn't tell him. I waited till I went to my mom's and it was just a rough a rough 2 days, let's just say. It's a rough 2 days because I was so unprepared and embarrassed, which is, that's a bummer. That's sad. It shouldn't have to be that way. And I have a daughter and I think about that, it's not a secret from her that I bleed. And I've talked to her about it, and she, is curious about it in a way. She's 3, but she'll ask, and I will answer her. It's not this secret or this gross, embarrassing thing. It's a
Right.
part of our journey, and I try to always be aware of like speaking in terms that are appropriate for a 3-year-old, but I also never want to underestimate her ability to understand a deeper meaning or the seed that could be planted even at 3 years old, and
Mhm.
the power that could carry with her in her future and as she goes through these changes. So another huge element of this goddess gathering thing is, what steps could I take to make my daughter not have to be embarrassed of her womanhood, to not feel like she has to change herself to fit in or to find love, to not be afraid to age or, change, and to not be afraid to be powerful. And it's overwhelming, like how can you help with such a huge societal issue? And
Right.
this is my own small way to offer her something better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And that is another thing that I love about your goddess gatherings, is because all walks of life, you know, different age groups, yeah, they all come to your goddess gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
And I love hearing the shares.
It's the best part.
Wow, it's eye-opening. It's very inspiring. Um, yeah, mm, it's like the yeah, it's the best. It's the best part, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like there's this stronger connection between, all these different age groups, all different walks of life of, women together. And then I just feel connected to all of them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, oh, I can't connect to her because she's older than me, or, oh, she's too young. She won't, whatever it is, right? But
Yeah.
then when we come together, it's like, wow, like, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to like open and communicate with all of them, and the same with them as well, like vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. And I think that is what we needed, what we need in, as women. Back then, women always congregated together, and they
Mm-hmm.
would share and have stories and do sacred rituals and things like that. And then, yeah, society was like, no, that's witchcraft. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you guys can't be doing that. And then they created all of these rules and separation, um, from like, like the patriarchal, people.
Yeah.
and and even like separating the bonding between the mother and child, and just cutting off the women's intuition, period, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like what you're doing here is bringing that all back together and saying like, no, we need each other. We need to create this space again.
Yeah.
um yeah, and I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I, yeah, I feel that deeply. Thank you. I also really enjoy the sharing section. I mean, it's fun that we get to, there's always some sort of ritualistic element. We, unite in breath and, or, imbibing something like a tea, or, and moving our bodies and releasing some of the pent up energies and giving ourselves a little reset physically. And all that I love so much, and it's so useful for these, ritualistic moments and these energetic shifts. But when we come to the shares, it's always the most impactful, and it's the part that I feel that I get the most out of, because I learn so much. Like it either I can relate and know what someone is going through in a way, or I can be inspired to such gratitude and such compassion seeing someone struggle, or I can be felt so seen and so held and so helped if I'm expressing a struggle. And I feel, how much the maidens grow and learn in these circles, and how it doesn't make them feel less than, but it gives them, something to kind of look forward to. And the elders of the circles get to remember how valuable they are and how important their voices are and their presence is, because I don't think we give that to elder women very much in the world. And within the circle, they're often like the most like deep hitting, in the sense that they can see from the outside, like, oh, I've been through that. And so sometimes they'll have like deep like perspectives to share, and it's so beautiful and so uniting, and it does feel primal and sacred.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that said, do you mind explaining like what goes on in your goddess gatherings? So people that are in the area or live here, and when they want to attend,
Yeah.
like what can they expect?
What to expect? Yeah, definitely. They can expect a good time. Well, hopefully. uh, so when I first had to set my mind toward what I wanted for myself to experience, because I'd attended some women's circles, and there's so many really great leaders and healers in Las Vegas, and they got to, show me what their models were and their methods were, and I got to, come into this with already some knowledge and initiation within me, but I knew that wasn't like, none of those were like my model. So I felt in a sense that I was starting from scratch, and that I'm all about. I love that. I think you've talked about human design on here before.
Yes.
I'm a manifester, so like I get a wild idea and I want to do it, and I don't really want anyone to tell me how to do it. And, I love collaboration, and I love, intentional criticism and feedback, and I think that that's very important for me. But for the most part, I like to be sort of the master, the captain of the ship. So I set to this, and I thought about like everything that I loved and didn't love about every ceremonial experience I had had, and I realized I had to take it out beyond just women's circles that I had, but even just ceremony I sat in, and like what really worked for me and what left me wanting more, and how could I bridge the gap between what left me wanting more and what really worked. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the sort of progression of the gatherings, and it came to my awareness that it takes a while, and I think for most women, like, we need a little while to ease in. We need some build up. We need first safety and comfort. We need some beauty and some inspiration, and then we need like a little space to open up. So if my ultimate goal was to get us into this share circle where we could be wildly honest and truthful and accepting of whatever came out in those moments, I wanted to make sure I hit all those marks and created this very nurturing space that still had elements of decadence and all of these other things. So there's always a sort of a focal point, an altar, if you will, that's seasonal, and it has some imagery, plants or animals or elements of nature that are going to immediately start calling into the subconscious mind where we're at in the seasons, and it will even start to call where we're at as far as in the archetypes of the goddesses or the feminine energy. So that right away, to me, it's like setting a tone and calling in the subconscious. And then I like to unite us all in frequency. You know, we're coming from different ages, different places, different practices. Some of us worked all day. Some of us, you know, are feeling unwell, whatever it may be. So to take a moment, and it's usually through some breath and meditation. And I really love to share just herbal teas, and they're always so simple. Typically just herbs from my garden that I already have, and like lemon and maybe honey, just the most simple things, and they are so impactful in the sense of it's this very ancient practice when you invite someone in and you want them to trust you, that you share food and drink. And it's a sort of, you know, ancient tradition of we can trust each other. You know, you have my gift of hospitality, you're under my protection here. And when you know, even like in the old days when they'd hit their cups so that their drinks would mix together, so you knew it wasn't poisoned or whatever crazy things they would do. There's like a ritual in those things. There's a tone that's set in that. So we begin by that. And this is all changing our frequencies so that we are starting to get into a group sort of mindset and a group frequency. We're all in the same vibration. And then also helping us release the stresses of the day and feel very safe to do so. And then we typically move into some physical movement. It's often like some yoga or somatic activity. Dancing is usually a part of it, but it's just going to be movement to, for one, get the wiggles out because the share circles are long. It takes a while for everyone to speak their piece. And for two, to give our bodies the opportunity to sort of get out of a fight or flight state that we're in so much in modern society and start to switch into rest and digest. And so we always are doing something that's very intentionally like activating a parasympathetic response and toning down that nervous system out of fight or flight. And then we go into the share circle. We have a little timer to try and honor that everybody gets a turn and everyone gets to share. And I found it helpful in that some people don't want to talk very much, and they might even be inclined to just talk really quickly and then not share. But when they have this timer, they're like, wow, there's a lot of time left on here. Should I say something else? And sometimes it'll like allow them that they may not have given themselves the permission before to take up more time. And conversely, some people, and I'm kind of one of these people, you may have noticed, I could just keep going. And I need a reminder of time is passing. You know, I'm here and there and everywhere, but I'm not in time in those moments. And so it's very helpful to anchor and to remember, and it allows for people who are like myself to be called back of, okay, it's time to wrap it up and come to my conclusion and let everyone have their turn. And we make a covenant as a group when we go into the circle that we won't talk about anyone's shares. We won't, it's completely confidential. It's a very sacred, private thing. And then afterwards we have snacks and we mingle and just enjoy ourselves for a little while. And that's approximately what can be expected.
Yes. Yes, so all of you all that are watching or listening, I have attended quite a few of the goddess gatherings, and they are, I leave feeling blissed. I leave feeling blissed out and just, but still grounded. and just super grateful because I get to commune with new sisters and see old friends as well too there, and it's just like a beautiful connection that I wish I had more of growing up. Yeah. So so if you guys are in the Las Vegas area or Henderson area, Southern Nevada, check out the Goddess Gathering. And how often are you having these?
So we always have them on the high seasonal wheel of the year markings, so equinoxes and solstices. So that would make our next gathering the autumnal equinox, so fall equinox. Our date is set for September 22nd, and the location is to be announced. So that will be our next gathering. And then for sure we'll be back for the winter solstice. In between, sometimes we'll do another event or a pop-up sort of situation, but always on solstices and equinoxes.
Beautiful. And where can people find more of you so they can get all this information?
Yeah. So we have a private Facebook group, the Goddess Gathering. We'll put a link probably in the notes. So you can find us there. We always share our events there, and that's a great place as well, because a lot of the members of the sisterhood are people like Tracy who have their own profound gifts and their own offerings. So sisters will share things on there as well, where it's not only the Goddess gatherings that you'll hear about other opportunities for connection and enrichment. And it's just a great place to stay in touch. People have made like best friends. It's so inspiring to see how many of the sisterhood have become very, very close, and they're like, oh, we met at the Goddess Gathering. So it's a great way to connect and stay in touch. And then we have an Instagram page, the Goddess Gathering LV, which we'll link as well. And then I'm working on, it's actually set to launch next week, but a little ebook. So if all this information was kind of a lot to digest about each different archetype and their correspondences, there will be an ebook coming out shortly. It'll be linked in the Instagram next week.
Beautiful.
So that you can download that and take your time digesting it.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, thank you so much, Christal, for sharing your gifts, your offerings, your story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for having me here and letting me share.